So let's do a capture on this link between router 1 and router 2. We can see some loop messages which are used to ensure that the interface is up. And we may have to wait a while for a CDP message to be sent. We can see that by typing show CDP and pressing enter. CDP only sends packets every 60 seconds, so we may have to wait a while. As we can see in the output here, CDP packets are sent every 60 seconds, and an entry in the table is held for 180 seconds. I'll show you more about that later. But scrolling down, here's a CDP message. We can see that it's using 802.3 Ethernet, and it's using a specific Cisco address, which I'll talk about in more detail later. It's using logical link control with an organizational unit of Cisco. In other words, the protocol used at a higher layer is CDP, and here's the CDP information. Version 2, we can see that it's router 2 advertising itself with its platform, port number, and other details. What's interesting is you can get a lot of detail through a CDP message, which is great for discovering the network, but is bad from a security point of view. You can see version of software, you can see platform, you can see IP addresses configured. So IP address, port number, you can see its capabilities and so forth. Here's router 1. So you can see the device ID is router 1 as an example. So the important thing to remember is CDP does not rely on high layer protocols. Messages are sent every 60 seconds by default. You can use CDP to map an entire network. So as an example, if you were connected to router 1 and you use the command show CDP neighbors, you could discover which device you directly connected to, and then you could use details, so show CDP neighbor details, to see detailed information about that neighbor, including its IP address. And then, if telnet is enabled on your network, you could telnet from router 1 to router 2, and then use the command show CDP neighbors to discover what devices are connected to that router. So as an example, here's a core 3750 router. Let's see what's connected to that switch. So I could use this command, show CDP entry and the name of the device, to just see the output for that specific device. Here's its IP address. So I'll telnet to that IP address. I can log in, assuming that I know the username and password. And once again, I could use the command show CDP neighbors to discover what's connected to that device. And here is an example. We can see some other devices which we weren't seeing previously, such as the Cisco 1841 router. So you could map out the entire network by simply using CDP on one device, then telnetting to the next device using CDP to discover what's connected to that, and then telnetting to the next device and discovering what's connected to that device. Now the Cisco APIC EM SDN software does a lot of this for you, and so does other SNMP or simple network management protocol management software, such as software from SolarWinds. You could do this manually, but there is software out there that can help you automate this process. You could also use a combination of protocols. So as an example, here's router 2, show CDP neighbors. Shows me that I have this core 3750 switch. I could then discover the IP address of that switch, which in this example is this. And then I could simply telnet to that switch and then use a protocol such as LLDP to discover devices connected to that switch. In this example, you can see the 2 Cisco IP phones and an Ubuntu hypervisor. I could look at details, so show LLDP neighbors details, and here I can see the IP address and model of phone, as well as the firmware being used by that phone and other information about it. Scrolling down, a lot of detail. Notice firmware revision, serial number, and quite a bit of other information, such as the Layer 2 quality of service and Layer 3 quality of service set on that phone. We'll talk more about quality of service later. Here's the Cisco DX650. So we can see its system name. We can see an IP address. We can see a firmware version. We can see quality of service information. We can see once again that it's a Cisco phone. We can see how much power is being used. A lot of detail. Here's Linux, so we can see an Ubuntu server running Ubuntu 14.04 LTS. You can see the name of the server and its IP address. So once again, CDP and LLDP allow you to discover devices in your network and also allow you to see how the devices are connected to each other in your network.